What's up YouTube, I'm James, and this week we're back on an old school project, the 1960 Grumman Olson Kurbside step van. So to give a quick recap of this project, in my previous videos you saw where I got this thing running for the first time in 29 years. I replaced some of those components such as the hoses, the belts, the tune-up parts. I discovered a water pump leak, and I replaced all the hydraulic parts in the braking system. That means there's not much left to do before we can finally hit the road with this Grumman for the first time in almost 30 years. But before we get to that, YouTube analytics tell me that only 2% of you guys watching are subscribed. So make sure you click that subscribe button. With that being said, let's get to work. And as you can see here, I've got the new water pump on, I got the belt back on, and the only thing I need to do now is get the radiator in and get the fluid back in there. And inside I've got the brand new master cylinder on. It's all bolted down, ready to go. It's already been bench bled, so we need to go ahead and try to see if we can adjust the front brakes and go ahead and try to bleed the entire system out. Now as you can see, I've got the grill back in, I've got the radiator back in, I got all the hoses hooked up, I got it filled up with coolant. Everything looks good there. We have all the brakes bled out, all four corners. Now I do still need to put the wheels back on in the rear. As you can see, they're still on the ground. But we have a great brake pedal and everything seems to be pretty fine. Not a lot of travel there, which is good. Now as you can see, I got the pedal set up back in, and really it's just time to put the key in and start this thing up. I finally have this thing in the shop and I can do some work in here on the concrete floor, which is much easier than doing it outside in the cold. Now I can do it in here in the heat, out of the wind. Now today it's 35 degrees outside roughly, and there's probably 25 or 30 mile-an-hour winds. You can probably hear some of the paneling in the shop rattling, and that's what that's from. So the reason I have it in here is there's a few little minor things that I want to address before I decide to take this thing out on the road for the first time. One of those things being adjusting the front brakes. Now the brakes feel really good, but you can tell with the pedal that there is a little bit of play and we need to get that out of it. But otherwise it's pretty much squared away. I do want to try to maybe clean up some in here while I'm in the shop. And of course we want to check our tire pressures on all the tires before we go out on the road. We're going to start off with the tire pressures all the way around, and then we're going to move up here to the front and jack this thing up and adjust the front brakes. Most of you older guys are pretty familiar with drum brakes, but you younger guys, you might not be as familiar because most modern cars have disc brakes front and rear. But it's pretty simple to adjust these brakes. You basically just need a tool like you see here, and there's a slot here on the backing plate, and there's a star wheel on the inside, and basically you turn that star wheel until you get a slight drag on your wheel, and then your brakes are adjusted. we'll test the pedal to see if it's any better. Oh yeah, feels like we got about an inch more of actual pedal now. I've got everything squared away, and pretty much the only thing left to do is to take this thing out on the road. Well, she seems to be running all right. Got some flat spots on the tires, but that's to be expected. But yeah, it runs pretty good now that it's warmed up. So my goal of getting this thing running and driving underneath its own power and to get it out on the road for the first time in almost 30 years was a success. Now this project is far from being over, as I still have to do that drivetrain and chassis swap. So until then, I'd like to say thank you for watching. If you're not subscribed, click the subscribe button, click the bell so you'll get the notifications, and you can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram.